Hey, Dre, I need to correct something from a recent episode because I actually don't know what 1,609 meters is.
On behalf of all New Zealanders everywhere, what the fuck is a mile? Welcome back to Motorsport 101. That was a wonderful toss there from my colleague Dwayne Wade. Welcome to episode 454 of Motorsport 101. And welcome to what our American buddy Mr. O'Connell has named, and I quote, some semblance of American pride.
Yeah.
Mostly because it's a little bit of a hybrid show. We like dabbling in other series every once in a while. It's part of the fun. And we felt like we had to talk a little bit about NASCAR in Chicago just to top up the Kool-Aid of IndyCar in Mid-Ohio, which was an okay race, but it didn't blow anybody away. And so this is going to be like an all-round fun, all-American episode. Isn't that right, Mr. Ryan Erik King alongside us?
Yes.
Yeah, he's here too. We taped him into the chair after the last episode. It's like, no, you're not getting away just yet, big man. We're not finished with you. And also, we got RJ O'Connell again joining us. Hey, RJ, how's it going, man?
Look, recent developments in the United States judiciary system and the implications they may cause down the road do not have me feeling a lot of American pride. But I'll tell you what does is seeing NASCAR actually pull off a street race that a lot of people thought was just a tax write-off, a boondoggle. And minutes before the start of the race, I'm just thinking, so are they going to circulate behind the pace car under the rain to just try and treat it like F1 did in Spa 2 years ago? But no, we actually had a race, and the race was kind of cool. Unless you're Noah Gragson in the Wendy's Baconator car. Then it was agony.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Noah Gragson in the Baconator car put it in the same wall on 3 separate occasions.
I think he did it 4 times.
Yeah, I think it was 4 times.
Oh Jesus! I didn't give him full credit. Damn! Like I thought, let's get him a hat trick ball. No, he had 4 of them.
Dude, that is a platinum sombrero of tire barrier strikes.
What a day he had. I watched the start of it. I was a little bit busy on my PS5, so I wasn't paying full attention to the race, but then obviously I came back towards the end, and I came back to a flying Bubba Wallace heading towards Ricky Stenhouse, and not in a good way either, unfortunately. I was like, oh no, I'm deeply conflicted about how I feel about this, because it did open the door for a potential amazing winner. And I mean, let's get into it right here and now, because it's let's talk about it. I mean, RJ, you wrote it, so I mean, talk to me about NASCAR in Chicago.
Yeah, because look, before we talk about IndyCar in Mid-Ohio, which is the feature of our show, we've got to talk about NASCAR's first street race in Chicago, which has been years in the making in itself, and a landmark moment in the Cup Series, because for the first time since Johnny Rutherford in 1963, predating the modern era of NASCAR Cup Series racing. So the first time ever in the modern era, a debuting driver has won their first race. And his name is Shane Van Gisbergen, the 3-time and reigning Supercars champion of Australia. Van Gisbergen was appearing on a one-off basis for Trackhouse Racing in the Project 91 car that previously gave Kimi Räikkönen his Cup Series debut. Van Gisbergen, getting me to a point that comes later on. Shane Van Gisbergen sought the challenge of a moderately unfamiliar car, the challenge of surprising runner-up Justin Haley, multiple caution flags, and the potential pitfalls of restarts that come with them. Heavy rainfall in the afternoon, which threatened to postpone or even cancel this race completely, and a race to beat the darkness. And Shane Van Gisbergen won the race on debut. Just a few hours before, the NASCAR and NBC commentators barely knew his name. Now he's a Cup Series race winner. And oh, by the way, Van Gisbergen has said that once his contract ends in V8 Supercars next year, he wants to do this full time. Trey, how cool is this?
Incredibly cool. Like, we've joked about this in our Discord server a little bit. But there's a genuine argument that NASCAR's been the racing series of 2023, and we are not joking about how much fun it has been, how generally great the racing has been, and just how fun the series has been to cover. Yeah, there's still some sketchy stuff about overtime rules and how some of the series gets down over certain things, but this was cool as shit. Like, having a street race in Chicago was awesome. The layout was great. The racing was fun. The track dried out reasonably quickly, and we got a very intriguing race.
King, shout out to Air Titan. Thank God for Air Titan.
Yep, the Air Titans got the track raceable extremely quickly.
Yeah,
dude, Denny Hamlin was like doom posting on his Twitter hours before the race, thinking that this was going to get called off completely. Because remember, this is a temporary street circuit. If there's rain and they can't race in it, they can't postpone it. No. It's done.
It's done, and they called off the Xfinity Series race just for this, even though they didn't even get to the mandated 50% to call a result. They still called it early, and they were like, no, we're not coming back on Monday just to run a few extra laps to get it to a mandate finish. We're just going to give Cole Custer the win, which is a weird sentence for me to say, to give Cole Custer the win, but here we are. So we'd already had some precedent to clear out as much space as they could to make this race happen. The Titans did a brilliant job, and as RJ alluded to, we had literal minutes of sunlight left by the time we got this to the end, because we had the late caution, we went into overtime, and NASCAR specifically said not only did they cut the race distance down from 100 laps to 75 because they couldn't get 100 laps in before sunset, they also said, no, we're going to have one overtime attempt, and that is it. If we don't get a finish here, we're going to call it, and we're going to go to the cameras to determine the finishing order.
That's how it used to be in NASCAR.
Yeah, so they had one overtime attempt. Thankfully, it was clean. And we've already seen like some very cool cameos from Kimi Räikkönen, and the Trackhouse is a fun team. I like Ross Chastain is box office. I know he's not the most likable for how he gets down on track, but like NASCAR needs a shit poster, and Ross Chastain fits the bill perfectly as someone to talk about in this series. It's crazy to
think that Ross Chastain, that Trackhouse racing in particular, has given this series two of its most memorable moments in a span of less than 12 months.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you don't remember, back in November, Ross Chastain decided to wall ride his way into the playoffs. Now, you may not like how it happened, but God damn it, that was fun. And now, this.
It was without question, like, the greatest overtake I think I've ever seen in motorsport. And
I don't know. This Shane Van Gisbergen one was also really good because he lets Justin Haley get past him, knowing that he could easily pass him right back at the next corner. That is insane.
Oh, just the way he adapted to these cars overnight was incredibly impressive. His racecraft was absolutely spot on. He had driven like a guy that had been here for years, like almost a bit like Chris Buescher, who's had a top 10 run of street track and road course finishes for a while now. Guys who specialize in that sort of racing. SVG adapted like he'd been here before, which is about as much as you can ask for someone who's made their Cup debut. He was perfect.
Well, King, I'd argue that in some ways Shane Van Gisbergen has been there before, because what is an Australian supercar but, a different interpretation of a NASCAR stock car in some ways.
Yep, and pretty much NASCAR has been open in saying that, the Australian supercars were the inspiration for the next gen cars. And they do a bit of street racing in the Supercars Championship. And in some ways, that makes SVG more experienced in street racing than anyone else in the field.
And if you talk to anyone in that part of the world, they all talk glowingly about how much of an incredible talent Shane van Gisbergen has been for many, many years. Like, it's like they all knew that this guy was coming in with a genuine shot of winning. Scott McLaughlin had been gassing the ever-loving shit out of him on Twitter, and rightly so, because if there's one person who knows how good SVG is, it's Scott McLaughlin. And Scott was apparently in tears when he saw his mate come over the line and win. And yeah, the first debut NASCAR Cup winner in 60 years. It was such a crazy event that people, like, I'll let you in a little secret here, folks. People at WTF1's management was asking me if it was worth writing about a NASCAR/supercar story on a massively predominantly F1 page. That's how cool this was. And like RJ said, Trackhouse are quickly becoming the coolest dudes in NASCAR. You just don't get fun cameos in motorsport quite this often anymore in the world of insurance claims and protecting assets, which is understandable to a degree.
It's like, understandably so. I think after what happened with Robert Kubica, I think a lot of organizations have got cold feet about it. But on the other hand, it does, when you do let that happen, it also leads to stuff like Nico Hulkenberg winning Le Mans debut, Fernando Alonso doing 2/3 of the Triple Crown, and now this, because Shane van Gisbergen still has a championship to win. He still has a Bathurst 1000 to win. But, oh, man, if you could put this dude in two places at once,
oh, my
Shane
God.
van Gisbergen a playoff waiver,
we all screamed on our Discord the same thing. Give this man a playoff waiver right now. Give him a headache, please. And also, I love that King dropped that Discord server just now, a tweet from Kenny Crandall that says, NBC Sports that were broadcasting the race says the NASCAR Chicago Street Race had 4.79 million viewers, the most watched Cup Series race on NBC since 2017. This was an overwhelming success by any and all counts. And yeah, we still have another really cool cameo coming up later this year, because don't forget, August 13th at the Indianapolis Road Course race, some Le Mans record holder, some guy called Kamui Kobayashi, Coach K, is making his debut for 2311. Dude, that's pretty cool, right?
Dude, it's crazy. We haven't even talked about, like, Jenson Button had a pretty respectable weekend himself. He didn't win, got pit maneuvered by Chris Buescher trying to enter the pits. It happens. It sucks. But
he was in the top 10.
Yeah, he was running top 10. He was having a very good race. And, like, I think there are, like, a non-zero amount of people that think, oh, this is terrible for NASCAR, that somebody could just come in and, like, win on debut. First and foremost, you know how hard this is? Like, if it were this easy.
Oh, yeah.
A driver like a Jordan Taylor, a Jenson Button, a Kimi Räikkönen, a Dario Franchitti would have just won by 6 laps first time out of the box. And honestly, like, I see stretches of driving from dudes like Christopher Bell, who led early on in this race. Kyle Larson, I know we don't like to give him a lot of credit for a lot of things for reasons that have nothing to do with his racing, but he was splendid again today. Chase Elliott came to play. Justin Haley. Justin Haley's only claim to fame in the NASCAR Cup Series has been lucky enough to winning the weirdest rained-out Firecracker 400 at Daytona ever. He absolutely fluked that win. This time, he was arguably one pit stop and a fender away from earning a second career win. And I think that is absolutely cool. Yes. In some respects,
I think it's to be pointed out that Justin Haley had started the race from last.
Yeah. That's another thing too. Like, yes, Shane van Gisbergen was quick, noticeably quicker than some drivers over great stages of the race, but he had to work to get this one, because I was thinking, oh boy, this is going to be like a lot of these other cameos, right? He's going to run up front, and then something's going to happen. The other shoe's going to drop, and then he just falls out of the picture. Didn't happen.
Yeah, like, like, I know people get very protective over the series that they like. I mean, there's a reason why I've often used the hashtag please like my dumb sport to describe many a motorsport series in many different contexts. Like, you should take one look at the TV ratings and look at the overall buzz around the series and how they pulled this off and think that, like, who fucking cares? Like, Shane Van Gisbergen wants to come into your series, race your cars, and he belongs. That is a win for everybody involved.
Hell
like,
yeah.
people, like, cool people. Like, isn't this exactly what you want in your favorite motorsport series? That people from other places want to come and race in it? Isn't
That's right.
That should be the greatest endorsement of your product available. Like, one of the greatest supercar drivers of all time wants to come over and race in your stock cars. That's cool as shit. I love it.
Yeah, that is absolutely cool as hell. It's a shot in the arm for at least this one race that NASCAR's needed because, look, I don't think I need to tell you that they have been far detached from their prime as a mainstream sport where they were threatened to surpass Major League Baseball and the National Hockey League in terms of national popularity. Those days are done. And I know it's going to be tough for them to try and like keep that momentum going, but this was a win. This was a big win. And can I say as well, even if it's not on 4th of July weekend, you got to keep the Chicago race because it is actually really cool.
I know many people that follow me on Twitter that were actually at that race, and they all spoke glowingly of how cool it was that there was a race in their backyard, or a short hop over. Like bringing NASCAR to the streets can only be a good thing in certain areas, and I think this was absolutely the right sort of market for it. And everyone that I spoke to that was down there, you know, said that they enjoyed themselves even with the rain, and you know, hopefully it's a bit drier. Hopefully next time they try this, we'll get slightly better weather. But hey, it was part of the reason as to what made this race so cool. But yeah, wonderful endorsement for NASCAR and brilliant for Shane. Delighted that he gets his flowers in another major audience outside of Australasia, I guess you could say. A huge dub for everybody. So well done, NASCAR, and congrats to Shane. That is cool as all shit. Like a genuine moment of history over in NASCAR, and that is awesome.
We got to talk about NASCAR and Australian supercars all in one segment. You're welcome.
Yeah. Like this is like I was about to make an Ashes joke there. Then you remember the SVG's from New Zealand. We beat them in their last series, etc. But should we talk a little IndyCar Mid Ohio next?
Yeah. Talking about series that need a eureka moment of their own. In the words of the kid who had to watch Krusty and The Simpsons, stop. He's already dead. For the 4th time in 5 races and the 3rd time in a row, Alex Palou won at Mid-Ohio and in dominant fashion. After the first sequence of pit stops, he led 48 out of a total of 80 laps and coasted to beat Scott Dixon, his teammate, by 5 seconds, with Will Power also on the podium in 3rd. And with Marcus Ericsson crashing out in the 3rd corner of the race after understeering into his countryman Felix Rosenqvist, Palou's lead is now an eye-watering 110 points from Scott Dixon, who has moved up to 2nd in the table. Palou did not say dominant. He strived away, but he did admit this is the best run of my IndyCar career so far.
Oh, you think?
So I guess I got to ask, Dre, are we done with the Astro Cup at halfway?
The one weekend Marcus Ericsson chose to throw away his race after 15 seconds. Damn. Like, he could not have timed that one any worse, given a week ago at Road America, we were talking about that, hey, maybe his value isn't as high as we thought it was, purely down to Marcus Armstrong. But he has been hit by the curse of the podcaster. Poor guy. Also, anybody wants to call him the sneaky Swede after that incident, get out. I think we need to change that nickname. I think we should get rid of sneaky. Maybe sledgehammer Swede, blatant Swede, obnoxious Swede. We'll go.
Where's your wife? Not at home. Big deal.
So that was a problem. Do you know how hard it is to even win 3 races in a row in IndyCar? Like this,
I do, because the last time anybody did this was Scott Dixon to start the 2020 COVID season.
and
So
that was like that was like holy shit. Scott Dixon's gone off.
So I also found something out because I went through the IndyCar record book because I'm thinking, damn, when was the last time we had a winning streak of 3 races? And it was Scott Dixon in the pandemic. But here's something else that Palou is chasing in 2 weeks. The last driver to win 4 races in a row, which is what he could do if he wins at Toronto. Remember, he won at Detroit. He's won on a street course. Last driver to do it was Sebastian Bourdais in the 2006 Champ Car World Series. Before then, it was Cristiano D'Amata in the 2002 Kart FedEx Championship Series. Before then, it was Alex Zanardi on the way to his second title at Ganassi in the 1998 Kart World Series. And before that, it was Al Unser Jr. in the 1990 PPG IndyCar World Series. Dre, what stands out from all these 4+ winning streaks that I just mentioned?
None of them have been in the unified IndyCar series as we know it.
The last one that we had when American open wheel racing was unified was Al Unser Jr. in 1990. Meaning it has never happened in this iteration of the IndyCar series that was established in 1996.
Good God. Like, it's one of those things where you kind of have to sit back and acknowledge, and you have to think about it, and you go, oh my God. Yeah, when was the last time somebody won 3 in a row? Because, like, we talked about this during our Road America episode. You're not supposed to do this in IndyCar.
No.
Like, this series is all built around driver skill, the fact that on any given Sunday, anybody can win. And how one of the stories of this race, which we didn't get time to talk about too much, but we want to mention it, Graham Rahal was the most competitive he's been in years during this weekend and was, if anything, screwed by his pit crew, letting him down not once but twice.
Goodness, and poor Colton Herta.
Yeah, because Graham Rahal qualified front row for what it's worth, but yeah, like, and just fell down the order a little bit due to 2 dodgy pit stops. But Colton Herta was again up there again for Andretti until the end.
Who gave Colton Herta the cartoon anvil? You know, it's been over a year since he won that race in Indianapolis where he had that deja vu. I've just been in this place for a moment.
How has he not won one of these since? How? He's Colton Herta. Like, seriously.
It's not like Andretti builds slow cars. Kyle Kirkwood just won at Long Beach. And it's not like he drove terribly. I mean, yes, he had that pit lane. Yeah.
He's had a lot of moments like that pit lane incident where he's done it to himself.
Yeah, he has. There's no getting around it. It's like, annoyingly, all the people that argued against Colton Herta getting a super license since that discussion at the end of late last year have kind of improved right to a small degree. Like, he's not been the best Herta we've seen, which was like mostly like 3 years ago now. Which is weird to say about a guy that's still so young. But like you've forgotten he was a top 3 guy in this series not that long ago.
Yeah, that's where most of his super license points came from. And when those roll off, I worry that window may have shut. But you know what? If he ends up being a multi-time IndyCar championship winner, that's perfectly fine. But Palou he's just that good right now. Alex Palou, if the Formula One grid was bigger, and if we stop letting the turkeys vote on Christmas, Alex Palou would have a seat immediately. He's earned it on merit.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, he's just impervious. It's just that feeling of the only other guy we're talking about in motorsport like this is probably Francesco Bagnaia at Full Song and Max Verstappen. Guys where it almost feels inevitable that they're going to make the move that wins them the race. And in Palou's case, it was that alternate start on the black tire, and then I remember saying to you, King, during the race, it was like, so he's probably going to run long here and then overtake him on the overcut. And then what did he say to me in response, King?
I said, what? Pretty much try. He's definitely going to cover that gap.
It was just I was trying to play it down, and King was like, "Nope, he is inevitable," and that's And that's exactly what happened, because he ran long. He came out like 2.5 seconds in front of Herta. And then once he was on the red tire, he was virtually unstoppable. He's putting half-second gaps on Colton Herta, one of the fastest dudes in this series at full song, again and again and again. He was as much as 9 seconds in front until he got into an interesting confrontation with Benjamin Petersen, which we'll get to shortly. But it's just that air of invincibility. I mean, I even mentioned he got caught up in a tangle with Carl Kirkwood early doors in that race. And even that didn't stop him, because Kirkwood was the one who spun out. It was just like everything is coming up Millhouse for Alex Palou right now. Even the sketchy incidents, it was a racing incident. We all kind of agreed that it was just one of those racing deals with Kirkwood and Palou. I don't think even Kirkwood was all that mad about it.
Nothing got as stupid as it did within Andretti Autosport last year.
Not even close.
Goodness.
Yeah, we didn't want to see that again. But everything has just come up Palou, and he's just so good. I can't stress this. I feel bored almost saying this, because he has been, since the start of May, virtually unstoppable. And as close to that as we've seen in IndyCar ever right now, which is just weird to say. Just absolutely incredible racing. He's doing things in that Chip Ganassi car that no one else in the sport can do. And like I said, like RJ said and alluded to, the final stint of the race, he is gapping Scott Dixon. And hasn't Dixon won here about 114 times in Mid-Ohio over the years?
He's a 206-time Mid-Ohio winner. This figure may be exaggerated for effect to hammer the whole point home. Scott Dixon is really good at Mid-Ohio. He's the only person that's ever won starting from the 20s. And to that effect, shout out to Pato Ward for making the alternate strategy work, because he spun during qualifying, which meant no laps and no chance to set more laps because he brought out a red flag. So he's starting 25th at a place where on-track overtaking is premium. So they just decided, right, we're going to turn this into a 3-stopper, and he turned it into a top 10 finish.
That boy rapid. Good Lord.
Why couldn't he be more like this, like the last few handful of rounds of races?
I love the fact that Pato also posted his heart rate monitor from his sports vest on Twitter earlier today, where his average heart rate was, and I'm not making this up, 165 for basically an hour and a half. Huh? I'm sorry.
If you ever think that that racing drivers are not like have to be like fit and proper to do this, you're out of your mind.
These athletes are incredible, and yeah, I'm glad that Pato the last couple of rounds has been able to keep his head cool and just remind everybody how fucking good he can be, because he was the only guy that had Palou level pace all race long. Okay, part of that was the 3-stopper, but even so, to get from the back of the field and end up in the top 10 is, plus 17 from where he started is incredibly impressive. I know we haven't got a lot of time to talk about a lot of other stories in that race. Shout out to Christian Lundgaard, who again is absolutely kicking ass for Rahal Letterman Lanigan. Maybe not quite as highlight reel worthy, because Graham was as good too this weekend, and Graham was more unlucky, but Lundgaard is so good.
Yeah.
So good.
I gotta tell y'all, Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing's on a bit of a roll between this and winning Watkins Glen and IMSA after a technical infringement. But, we take these W's.
It counts. It counts. We got to get something. And like I said, Graham was as good as he's looked in maybe 3 or 4 years. That was a really nice weekend for Graham. It's bad when we often pick shots at Graham because he's a bit testy outside of the car at times.
He's a bit full of his own shit sometimes.
I'm glad you said it, not me. But even me and King were like, no, let him cook just this once. He's earned it. It's like, look, he's up there fighting for the win. He's keeping up with Colton Herta. You got to give him that. Come on,
well,
So
we can bring him down later on when Ohio State loses in the college football semifinals.
Just before we move on, Alex Palou has 2 weekends in hand. 2.
Yep. That's something that you don't see very often.
And we're only halfway through. Like, we are 9 through 17 rounds.
I don't want to litigate, whether or not Palou should leave Ganassi at this stage, because, I feel like we should table that for when/if the announcement ever comes. But
sure,
this is something special. I'm enjoying it. Fried chicken and cappuccino for everybody. God, that is probably the recipe for an upset tummy.
Oh, it is. No question. Look. Personally, I wish I found Palou a little bit more engaging as a personality. I mean, he does have a nickname on our Discord server as tended to by our friend and yours, Zoe Hamilton, who calls him the wholesome bitch, which I still think is very funny. I wish I found him a little bit more engaging because, he's a very wholesome, very quiet, very I don't want to say humble, but more soft-spoken sort of gentleman sort of figure, and
he can be ruthless when he needs to be.
Oh yeah.
Otherwise, he is a true gentleman, a true class act. This is the kind of driver that you want. If you were trying to teach somebody what kind of driver should I be like? Probably an Alex Palou type, because
he's the guy you bring home to see your mum. You can trust him. He seems like a nice guy, unless a contract dispute's involved.
Yeah. Then he's like, your daughter calls me daddy too.
Oh no.
And he's that kind of guy.
Woo!
Well,
it's going to be interesting to see if that makes the edit or not. I'm going to keep that one in.
Well, Dre, there was one big thing that got in his way, and that was the Indianapolis 500 Rookie of the Year. Okay, fair enough.
This was a weird one. Benjamin Petersen, the man got a lot of airtime during this race, so good for his sponsors, whatever helps. He had a heavy amount of fighting to stay on the lead lap with Palou behind him. Even after Palou eventually cleared him, he was still aggressively defended from Pato O'Ward, Scott McLaughlin, and David Malukas, who, oh, by the way, we'll get to him in a minute as well, with all of them complaining to the media so much. This isn't the funniest bit. I don't know if you guys saw this. The series Twitter account made a thread of everybody who bitched and complained about Petersen's blocking. I was like, wow, it's like that then, huh? I was like, okay. With more drivers pushing for it than ever, is it finally time IndyCar makes blue flags in a similar way to F1 mandatory to step aside?
Okay. So every podcast is somebody's first. Everybody's IndyCar race is somebody's first. There's a big difference in the way that Formula One and IndyCar handle cars that are on the tail end of the lead lap and are about to be passed. IndyCar defines a lap car that should yield track position and gets their push-to-pass shut off as a driver that has already been lapped by every other car that is on the lead lap. Whereas in Formula One, if the leader is going to pass you and you're still on the lead lap, they're going to tell you to move over and let that car through. So you don't typically get chances where you have cars fighting to stay on the lead lap or overtaking the leader to get back onto the lead lap. That dust up between Ocon and Verstappen and Interlagos aside, it's very, very rare that you see that in optimal conditions. IndyCar is different. American Motorsport is different in that matter because they do pay points down for every position. It's not where only the top 10 get points. Every person that starts gets points on a sliding scale. So more points you get, the higher your position is, the more points you get. You also get more money because these drivers in these teams pay is directly impacted by their finishing position.
Mm-hmm.
So more positions means more points, it means more money. And so you're incentivized to get as many positions as you can. And that's harder to do when you're pinned a lap down. It really is. Will Power has been like he was like it in 2017. He was like it in 2021. Is like it now. Will Power wants it to go back to the F1 style system where if you're on the tail end of the lead lap about to be passed by the leader, that's tough shit. You got to move out of the way. But back when he brought this up in 2021, he also suggested, like, the guys that are fighting for this track position probably don't like it because they're just in the way of everybody. So why not just give everybody a wave around to put them back at the tail end of the lead lap if there's a caution? Because that's why they're fighting to stay on the lead lap. They want to get back to the tail end of the lead lap in case a caution comes out.
So again, another page from F1's book to a degree where at race director's discretion, they can wave the lap cars through. Because that's never come up before in a controversial fashion in F1.
Well, it's not at the race director's discretion. They would have to change the rule.
Yeah. It would be like something like NASCAR's the lucky dog rule, the whatever they call it.
I think it would be more like in Formula One where they would wave all the lap cars through, because like having it be the lucky dog in NASCAR, it's only the first car a lap down, so people would desperately fight for that position.
Yeah, for obvious reasons, because like RJ alluded to in IndyCar, if you're a lap down, your day is essentially done.
Yeah.
Your race is effectively over at that point.
In fairness to Benjamin Petersen, who has had a season of a lot of valleys and one very cool peak, he's got something to fight for to stay ahead of Felix Rosenqvist, because he's also trying to fight for leader's circle standings and therefore a leader's circle bonus payout of $1 million. Now I've given up trying to track who's in the leader's circle standings because I assume it operates off of Calvin ball rules every time. When I try to track it, it's just like, oh, it's different every time. But he wants to be one of those cars that gets $1 million payout, because I don't necessarily know if it's the case with his backers and AJ's Ford sponsor, because sometimes that can be the difference between a program having the budget to run a full season next year and not.
Especially given its Foyt and how much they've struggled in recent years.
Yeah. Again, they've got a new sponsor coming in. Benjamin Petersen probably brings his own backing, and he's on a multi-year deal, but he wants to fight. And if IndyCar doesn't change this, he's not going to be the last driver that's going to be a pain in the ass for the leaders to get around on a permanent road course where on-track overtaking is at a premium.
Yeah, I think Mid-Ohio itself is definitely a small part of the contributing factors here, because like you said, there's really only one proper overtaking spot, and that's down the backstretch and on the bottom of the hill before we go into the overhead complex. That did not help. And look, drivers, of course, they're going to complain in the heat of the moment in their car when a guy's fighting to stay on the lead lap. That's a given. I didn't even realize as well that you're only really meant to step aside the IndyCar once the whole field has lapped you. So it's
that's also when they shut your power to pass, push the pass off.
Right.
So actually, it's once you're off the lead lap. So once the leader gets by you, anyone behind the leader, you have to move over.
Yeah.
That's probably why so many people were pissed off with Petersen, because he was defending hard against multiple people after Palou had already lapped him.
Yeah. I get it with Palou and
that makes sense.
But the other cases are just like, bro, what are you doing? Like James Hinchcliffe and Townsend Bell took time to stop bickering with each other and be like, yo, what is Benjamin Petersen doing out here in Arlington, Texas?
That's not a polar bear. But no, I don't have a huge problem with this rule. I don't look at it and I go, oh my God, I wish that lap car got out of the way. I've never thought that while watching an IndyCar race. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend like, oh, this is a huge,
it's partly due to circumstance because it is hard to pass in Mid-Ohio. And,
Absolutely.
like, it actually impacted the race. It cut the deficit between Palou and the second place car in half.
Yeah. It got to a point where we, like, speculated they were going to put Marcus Ericsson back out on track specifically to bunch the wagon up behind Petersen to make it easier for Palou to go by, because Ericsson, in that incident we mentioned earlier, he wrecked the suspension on his car. He lost about 45, 46 laps.
And he also had to serve a 45-second penalty.
On a side note, like, IndyCar, a series that we've often criticised for washing their hands of all accountability when it comes to on-track excursions, they looked at that incident and they thought, no, we're going to get him for this one. You watch this. And then he hit him with a 45-second stop-and-go penalty for that.
Why would Kyle Novak do this?
No, genuinely, why would he do that? I do not... How did you come to that conclusion?
Especially, that's a steward's decision, but that is crazy.
I said this before, and I will say it again. Someone put Niels Wittich, Freddie Spencer, and Novak in a room with a beehive, and only one of them gets to leave. What is wrong with you people? Like, please, someone officiate a motor series properly. It's all I ask. Like, for all the shit that IndyCar lets you get away with, that's a 45-second stop and go. Oh, God. Like, dude, for a guy that was already 45 laps down, I do not understand. Like, okay. Rant over. Yeah, I don't have a big problem with this. Like, I do find it funny, though, that, like, King, I know you make the Indy Rivals joke a lot on social media and about the series in general. What do you call it when the social media admin decides to dogpile you?
I mean, damn, they really went out there and posted every clip they could find of this dude being a menace.
Every single one. Scott McLaughlin, Paolo O'Ward, David Malukas, Alex Palou. They put them all in one big old thread. Tagged Benjamin in the thread directly, and we're like, "Yep, boys and girls and friends in between, have at it." It's like,
dude, that's crazy, and they're doing this while the site's rate limited.
Oh my god.
Oh god, I'm just like I've been accused on Twitter of being unnecessarily harsh on the way IndyCar gets down sometimes. This one I just find funny. Yeah. I'm just sitting here like, wow, you like I was accused of tone policing after what happened at Road America when NBC was like, oh yeah, this is where the real racing's at this weekend. And I'm like, what the hell do you call this? Like, dogpiling a guy on Twitter for doing what he's legally allowed to do. Well, I'm just like, kind of. I don't know. Like somebody help me out here. Have I gone mad about how IndyCar's looking at this?
No, I think they're both IndyCar and Formula One. They have a reason to promote against one another, and they also have a reason to like exchange ideas. It's like how Formula One qualifying sessions could benefit for drivers causing a red flag and be like, actually, no, you lose your 2 fastest laps and you don't get to go back out again once the red flag is lifted. Maybe IndyCar would also benefit for just like asking guys to move over on road and street courses, not ovals, just the road and street courses, and do something that would be a bit more equitable to the drivers that are off the lead lap but still want to fight for position.
Yeah, I don't have a big problem with this either way. I wouldn't have a big problem with it if they decided to make that change. I'd be like, okay, fair enough. Like,
I don't think they will. Like, Will Power and Scott Dixon after the race were just like joking, like, yeah, they're not going to change this.
Yeah, they kind of knew.
And they've been in this, and they've been in the trenches together for like 15 years.
Yeah, they know. Like an IndyCar hasn't really got a big reason to change it. So, why would they?
Researching this topic was also how I remember that Esteban Gutierrez raced in IndyCar and almost collected Joseph Newgarden after a restart while he was a lap down.
Yeah,
I forgot that was a thing. Damn.
Everybody forgets that Esteban Gutierrez drove for Dale Coyne Racing in 2017.
Shit. God, no, you're right. I had completely forgotten that was even a thing. Damn, fair enough.
On the subject of Dale Coyne Racing.
Yes, we had another potentially big silly season update because out of nowhere, going into this weekend, Little Dave Malukas, basically did a Damian Lillard. I demand to be traded because he openly said he doesn't expect to stay at Dale Coyne at the end of this season. It's not been a particularly great year for him so far at Dale Coyne. Great race this weekend, finished 6th the day. That was a superb result for Malukas, but he admitted he wanted a new team for 2024. He said to the Indianapolis Star, quote, "We're very much talking with other teams and there's plenty of offers from people who still want me. And it's looking very good for next year. But the trajectory as of now looks like I'm not going to be with Dale Coyne Racing next year. I'll be somewhere else." What do you make of Malukas' shock announcement, and where could he end up?
Dave time.
Am I wrong for thinking this isn't really like that huge of a shock, considering like he's been one of the most touted potential free agents on the transfer market now for a couple of months now?
Yeah, and especially considering that, let's see, Andretti have at least one open seat for next year, and Ganassi's just a mess, but there's a chance he can get it.
Hang on. Well, I have to pause this just for 1 second here, because we haven't had King on an IndyCar show in a while. King, what's up with your mans? Grosjean, tell me about your mans in the 28 car for a minute. Team leader Romain Grosjean. What the hell is going on in that seat?
Things have changed. There's a new guy.
You reckon?
There's a new guy at Andretti who definitively, based on past episodes of the show, is my guy.
Friendship ended with Romain Grosjean. Kyle Kirkwood is my new best friend. Things like, you have won me back.
Yep. Dude, it's crazy. Like, David Malukas is capable of getting like awesome results, and Dale Coyne Racing is capable of getting awesome results at times. But like, the reality is, they have one of the smallest headquarters. They have way less resources than any other team. Like, they can fight for a shock podium. They can even fight for a shock win. But the benchmark is more along the lines of like running anywhere from 10th to 20th most races. And man, oh man, they probably really miss having an experienced hand on the other side of the paddock, because like, I know Takuma Sato wasn't at his best vintage last year, but if Stingray Robb didn't have such an audacious name, we would just be thinking like, dude, did they shut down the 51 car? Because it has been nowhere.
Right, like I was going to say,
they miss having a dude like Sebastian Bourdais on the other side of that paddock. They miss having someone like Justin Wilson, God rest his soul. It's been 8 years since he fought for his last potential win at Mid-Ohio on the other side of that garage.
I was going to say, I wasn't so much surprised by this announcement, but for different reasons than RJ. Not because Malukas is highly touted, because he is, and I think he deserves to be, but mostly because Dale Coyne's been nowhere this year. It's more the second reason that RJ's alluded to. Like, Malukas is 19th in the standings right now. He went 6 rounds between top 20 finishes this season at one point. Like, and that's partly on Malukas, partly on Dale Coyne, just underperforming in general. Stingray Robb has been not good.
Like I said, if it wasn't for his audacious name, we would have thought that they shut that 51 car down.
Right. And Dale Coyne is meant to... we've looked at them more as this like team that sort of nurtures younger talent and they move on to better things. And maybe that's that next stage in the cycle for Malukas now, more than anything else. Look, I think he'd be excellent in the 29 at Andretti instead of Devlin DiFrancesco. I think that's the clear gaping hole of a problem in that side. I know there's a lot of rumblings that Romain Grosjean has had his contract extension mysteriously go missing. Chip Ganassi Racing could be losing one, maybe two of their drivers next year. If you're going to lose Palou to McLaren or to F1 in general, I think Malukas would be an excellent fit in the 8 or 10 car, depending on how that rolls out. There's a lot of places he could fit. I say in my notes, I think McLaren, would actually be a great fit for him as an up and coming guy.
Oh goodness, yeah.
If they are dead set on going to 4 cars, I think that would be a great fit for the future for them, because they've got a good blend of experienced veteran names in their early 30s, and of course Pato O'Ward, who is a monster. Malukas is, I think, somewhere in the middle of all of those places, and I think that would be a great fit for him as well. Who's less messy right now, McLaren or Andretti? I don't know. Probably Andretti still. I don't know. It's a weird one, but Malukas I would put in that bracket with, I would say, Christian Lundgaard as like top 2 on the list of free agents that I would go after. I still am not like I like Marcus Ericsson a lot, but his value, I think, is limited as a driver, especially given I've talked before about Marcus Armstrong and how I think he's been good enough as a rookie where you go, do I need another high floor guy? And given what Chip Ganassi has as drivers, then I think that kind of does him in a little bit in terms of value. Malukas has got a bucket load of upside, and especially on ovals, something that you might even argue puts him ahead of the queue of Lundgaard, is that Malukas is an oval guy. He's had some exceptional oval performances, and Lundgaard hasn't had that yet. How much of that is on their respective employers is probably also a factor in that. But, I mean, King, you got any ideas? 29 cars was one that you're thinking, maybe?
Yeah, probably, because it seems like a certain Canadian won't be returning next year.
Yeah, I think Devlin's days are numbered. Remember last year when he said that Devlin was going to be a multi-year project for Michael Andretti?
Well, 2 years is multiple.
we made it to 2.
Okay, we got to 2 years. The project is over. Have fun with that. But again, get in touch. I'd love to see what you guys think where David Malukas could end up. Because you know what, I really like David Malukas. Great driver, great talent, disgustingly likable young man as well. Just like, have you never heard anyone say a bad word about David Malukas ever? He's adorable. Like seriously, he's like a puppy. Hire that man. I'd love to see what he can do in a more competitive package than Dale Coyne, and I think that's going to be a fascinating one to keep a hold of. IndyCar back this weekend
Next weekend,
sorry. So they got a week off, which is weird for IndyCar in the middle of the year. They've got a week off. They're back next week in Toronto. So do check that out. Our friend and yours, Zoe Hamilton, will actually be over there for that race as well. So we'll try and get Zoe on as well to talk about Toronto in person, because that's going to be pretty cool. We've got a couple more episodes to get through this week as well. We're catching up a little bit with Formula E in Portland as well. Yeah, Portland, home of the IndyCar and now Formula E cars, and that is a fascinating round to talk about. I'm looking forward to that as well, because that was some racing that certainly split the room on that one. Places you can find us real quick, motorsport101.com for all my thoughts on this race and F1 in Austria. Motorsport_101 for us on Twitter, as well as our personal handles at Dre_WTF1, at Ryan Erik King, and at RJ O'Connell. Again, you can back us on Patreon as well, patreon.com/motorsport101 if you want to back us financially on there. We'll be back for Formula E in Portland. Until then, I've been Dre Harrison, they've been RJ O'Connell and Ryan Erik King. Until next time, thank you very much for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Sayonara.
Bro, if they are serious about charging for access to TweetDeck, this platform is done.
See y'all on Blue Sky.
Fucking hell.